Greetings. Frederick Riddle here with another Christian News and Views. This is episode 227, and this is Wednesday. So, Poland said Wednesday that, along with NATO allies, it had scrambled warplanes to shoot down multiple Russian drones that entered its airspace during Moscow's latest attack on Ukraine, calling the incident an act of aggression. Last night, the Polish airspace was violated by a huge number of Russian drones, Prime Minister Donald Tusk said in a social media post. Those drones that pose a direct threat were shot down. I am in constant communication with the Secretary General of NATO and our allies. Poland's military said it scrambled aircraft to shoot down hostile objects in Polish airspace, a first for a NATO country during the war. The military, in a post on X, called it an unprecedented violation of Polish airspace by drone-type objects and an act of aggression that posed a real threat to the safety of our citizens. The European Union's top diplomat, Kaja Kallas, said early indications suggested the Russian drone incursion into Poland's airspace was intentional. Last night in Poland, we saw the most serious European airspace violation by Russia since the war began, and indications suggest it was intentional, not accidental, Kallas said in a statement. The EU stands in full solidarity with Poland. Russia's war is escalating and not ending. We must raise the cost to Moscow, strengthen support for Ukraine, and invest in Europe's defense. Russia's Ministry of Defense said its drones had not targeted Poland, but Moscow's close ally, Belarus, said it tracked some drones that lost their course after being jammed, according to the Associated Press. Polish officials have said some of the drones were launched from Belarus, which Russian forces have used as a base for both ground and aerial attacks on Ukraine throughout the war. In a statement posted on social media, a NATO spokesperson said fighter jets from the Netherlands were deployed and helped to shoot down the drones, confirming it was the first time NATO aircraft have engaged potential threats in Allied airspace. In addition to the direct response by Polish and Dutch fighter jets, German Patriot missiles based in Poland were placed on alert, and an Italian airborne early warning aircraft and a NATO refueler aircraft were also launched, according to the statement from NATO spokesperson Colonel Martin L. O'Donnell. NATO responded quickly and decisively to the situation, demonstrating our capability and resolve to defend Allied territory, General Alexis G. Grinskowicz, NATO's commander for Europe, said in a statement shared with CBS News, which is this is off of, I guess. My thanks and congratulations to the Polish Operational Command and our NATO pilots for shooting down Russian drones over Poland. Poland's Prime Minister Tusk said in a social media post. Actions speak louder than words. We stand by our NATO allies in the face of these airspace and violations and will defend every inch of NATO territory, U.S. Ambassador to NATO Matthew Whitaker said Wednesday in a social media post, in the first reaction from a senior American official to the Russian incursion into Poland's airspace. Apparently, Russian drones and missiles have entered the airspace of NATO members previously, including Poland's several times during Russia's 3.5-year war, but no NATO country had ever tried to shoot them down. A cornerstone of the Western NATO military alliance is the principle that an attack on any member is considered an attack on all. A NATO source told the Reuters news agency that the alliance wasn't treating the Russian drone incursion into Polish territory as an attack, but it did appear to have been deliberate. Tusk told Poland's parliament that authorities had identified 19 violations of the country's airspace overnight and shot down at least 3 drones, adding that no one was harmed in the Russian action. Tusk said Poland had made a formal request to invoke Article 4 of the NATO alliance's founding treaty. Under Article 4, a member can call urgent talks when it feels its territorial integrity, political independence, or security are at risk. The Polish case marked the eighth time the article has been invoked since the alliance was founded in 1949, and the third time Article 4 has been invoked to address Russia's incursions into and invasion of Ukraine. NATO's collective security is based on its Article 5 principle, which states that if one member is attacked, the entire alliance will come to its defense. That article has only been invoked once in the history of NATO by the United States following the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. Poland's military um, said efforts were underway to search for and locate the possible crash sites of these objects. And the operational command of the Polish armed forces is monitoring the current situation, and Polish and allied forces and assets remain fully prepared for further actions. Polish police said officers had discovered a damaged drone in the eastern Polish village of Krosnovka, according to Reuters, and there were reports that a building was damaged by a falling drone or debris in another eastern Polish town, but there were no reports of any injuries. Hours later, Poland's military said on X that the operations had concluded, but the search for downed drones was continuing. We urge that in the event of observing an unknown object or its debris, do not approach, touch, or move it. Such elements may pose a threat and contain hazardous chemical materials. They must be thoroughly inspected by the appropriate services, the military cautioned. The Polish government announced it would hold an extraordinary meeting Wednesday morning. The incursion came as Russia unleashed a barrage of strikes across Ukraine, including the western city of Lviv, around 50 miles from the Polish border. Warnings of further Russian aggression. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said Wednesday that 8 Russian drones were aimed toward Poland in an overnight barrage that forced Warsaw to scramble air defenses. It was not just one Shahed that could be called an accident, but at least 8 strike drones aimed toward Poland, Zelensky said, referring to Iranian-designed drones deployed by Russia, announcing that the incident represented an extremely dangerous precedent for Europe. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiga warned on X that Russian President Vladimir Putin just keeps escalating, expanding his war, and testing the West. The longer he faces no strength in response, the more aggressive he gets. A weak response now will provoke Russia even more, and then Russian missiles and drones will fly even further into Europe. Poland's newly elected nationalist President Karol Nawrocki issued a warning along the same lines Tuesday, saying at a news conference in Helsinki that we do not trust Vladimir Putin's good intentions. We believe that Vladimir Putin is ready to also invade other countries. European Union Chief Ursula said Moscow had carried out a reckless and unprecedented violation of Polish airspace. And the EU's top diplomat Kaja Kallas posted on X Wednesday that we saw the most serious European airspace violation by Russia since the war began. An indication suggests it was intentional, not accidental. The EU stands in full solidarity with Poland. Russia's war is escalating, not ending. NATO member Poland, a major supporter of Ukraine, hosts over 1 million Ukrainian refugees as a key transit point for Western humanitarian and military aid to the war-torn country. Last month, Warsaw said a Russian military drone flew into its airspace and exploded in farmland in eastern Poland, and depicted the incident as a provocation. In June 2023, Poland said a Russian missile had crossed into its airspace to strike Ukraine. And in November 2022, 2 civilians were killed when a Ukrainian anti-aircraft missile fell on a village near the border. So here's my opinion. Putin's getting reckless. It probably came as a surprise when Poland and NATO shot down his drones. But this certainly looks like he is testing NATO's self-defense agreement. Hopefully he got the correct message and will back off, but I wouldn't count on it. So, have you enjoyed today's take on the news? It's rather interesting. You think that the Putin's in a box, and he keeps getting out of that box and creating a new box. And as long as we let him play like that, he's just going to get worse. I know Trump is planning on some severe economic sanctions and some other things. I just my prayer is that God will guide him in how to act and how to respond to all this, because diplomacy doesn't seem to be something that Putin's embracing. So anyhow, hopefully I've given you something to inform you, encourage you, and inspire you. And I hope that you can take this and find something in it to think about. Maybe you see something in there I don't. Feel free to comment. Just keep them clean, keep them nice. And if you just, especially if you disagree with me. And so, and oh, by the way, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to my channel. Well, that's it for today, and I will now wait until the next time when I'll see you in the next video.